1500, The New World. This is a game by DVG. It is a card-driven game in which players take on the role of European colonial powers in the 16th century. You control France or England or Spain, and you're going to the New World. It is new to you, people there already knew it was there. But you go to the New World to bring your superior civilization, the one true religion that happens to be yours. How lucky is that? You are legitimately taking control of those lands that belong to your king. Or at least those are the things that you're telling yourselves as a colonial power of the 16th century. In truth, you're getting there, slaughtering people, and taking their stuff. You may already get a sense that I'm not particularly keen on the political implications of the theme. These implications are pretty much swept under the carpet. There is some reference here and there to the violence that was implied in the historical events. You take those resources and you score points for taking them. It is a sanitized version. It doesn't really represent what is the cost for other people of you taking those resources. In any case, before we talk more about the political elements, we need to take a closer look at the game and see how the game works. Here you see the board of the game. Here you have a turn track. The game lasts exactly 6 turns. We have a score track and a royal support track where you will have a marker that will move up and down during the game, and the position of the marker will tell you how many cards you get at the beginning of your turn and also what your maximum hand size is. So you may have some cards left from a previous turn. You get 6 new ones, for example, but then you discard down until you have only 6. I imagine that your position on the track also influences turn order, that is, you go from top to bottom, but that is unclear. This is one of the several gray areas on the rulebook. The rulebook talks about the turn order a couple of times, but it's not clear about how that exactly works. If it's affected by your position on the track, I played it that it is, and so be it. There are other areas in which I'm not sure, and I'll tell you my interpretation of the rules. Then we have the map itself. The map is divided in areas which are grouped in regions. Each region has 3 areas. Also, each area is characterized by a resource that you can steal from the natives. I guess in some cases you acquire them through humane and equanimous means, through trade, etc., etc. But we know the 99th European rule of acquisition states, why buy when you can take? So, the wheel will be scoring extra points if you have a colony in each area of a region, and that is called regional monopoly, and also you will score points if you have a colony in each area that produces a certain resource. Each resource, for example, gold here is represented in 3 areas, and so that will give me the monopoly for that reason, the export monopoly. Now, the game is card driven, so you will draw cards on this Kaban deck. You will have your hand of card. Again, the size will change. And then during your turn, suppose I have 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. During your turn, you play any and all cards from your hand. And the cards can be used for a variety of things. And I really like this. I like the flexibility of the cards. The fact that if you don't like the text, you can burn the card for another type of effect. Yes, during your turn, you can play a card simply for the text. And a lot of cards will manipulate the colonies on the board. Some cards will allow you to add new colonies. Some cards will allow you to target, to reduce colonies of the opponent. For example, an effect is to reduce a colony, then a colony is turned to its struggling side. And if you reduce a struggling colony further, then the colony is removed. Interesting enough, at the beginning of a turn, actually, the first thing you do is you count how many struggling colonies you have, and you lose a point for a struggling colony because you're a European power. It's just embarrassing that your colonies are struggling. Better not to have it there at all. So after you lose those points, and this player rate is very well done. Pretty much this is a summary of the entire rules of the game. After you lose a point for each struggling colony, you may remove any and all of your struggling colonies. You can also remove the regular ones, but I don't see much incentive to do so. Then, after you get your cards, again, it's time to play or to play cards for their effect or to discard them. So, again, just read some of the effects and that will give you a sense of what you can do and what they can do. But also you'll get a sense that some can be devastating. Some of these cards have huge effects. Struggle all colonies belonging to other players that are adjacent to your colonies. Again, this is a tricky thing. I understand these are adjacent to my colony, adjacent areas, but does this count as adjacent? It should say in the same area or adjacent. Actually, they only mean this one is adjacent. I counted for adjacent colonies in the same region and in adjacent regions. And pretty much that means that all of those red colonies, all of them are gonna struggle if I'm the blue player and I play this card. Boom, 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 boom. And maybe I have a colony here too. Gone. Am I misreading this? I don't know. This is the interpretation I gave from this card. I think it's a legitimate interpretation. But then I look at what it does and I'm thinking there may be something wrong because this is a huge swing. Because then red player goes on the beginning of their turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points lost. That's big. And there are effects like that. They give you 15 points. They let the opponent. They force the opponent to lose 12. They wipe out all of their colonies. I guess it does represent the instability of the situation of these Europeans that are just putting settlements in the middle of nowhere in areas that understandably are not very friendly with them. And that's the fragility and instability of those settlements, but really the map can change so fast. If you're playing with more than 2 players, chances are that when the game comes back to you, you may not recognize the board. Now, true, there are some of the cards that you can play out of turn. The ones with the dark background, usually you play as a reaction to other cards. For example, you may cancel a card. So you may say, well, why don't you save that card for when the opponent has that card? So if that card hits you so hard, it's your fault. Kinda, because the opponent plays this one, and then I play this one, and then the opponent plays another one, which is equally devastating. Well, struggle up to 6 adjacent colonies, almost the same. So you're just gonna be hit by these cards that are gonna change the situation on the map entirely. And this is the idea. So you play cards for their effects, but you also can play cards and you just burn them for other reasons. You may simply discard a card, ignoring the effect, to build a colony. The rule says place a colony. I want to show it to you. Build. Discard a card to build one colony on any area that does not already have a colony. I guess that means no colonies whatsoever. Then later in the game it's going to be very hard. But then I look at the examples on the rules. I look at the effects on the cards. My impression is that you can add colonies to areas that already have other colonies. I assume it means that it doesn't have colonies of your own color. That's how he played it. That's how he played it. Is the correct one? I don't know, but that seems to make sense and to take care of some contradictions between the rules and the play examples in the rule book and the card effects. Build, place a colony. discard a card to place a colony. You can discard a card to reduce a colony of an opponent. You can discard a card to repair one of your colonies that was struggled. You can also discard a card, ignoring the effect, but looking here at the number in the corner to reduce the royal support of someone else or improve your royal support. Remember, the royal support will affect how many cards you get, and possibly, if I got that right, the turn, the order, play your turn. So at the end of a turn, you also get to tally points. So you score points from the successful colonies that you have on the board, 2 points for each export monopoly, 2 points for each regional monopoly, 1 point for each colony of the opponent that you struggled. And then the game goes to the next player that repeats the procedure. Draw, loses points for struggling colonies, draws cards, plays cards, tallies points. Now, what you see here is very interesting. My review copy came with all of these mini expansions that are national decks. So you have unique decks that allow you to play as specific countries, in which case you don't draw from the regular deck, and this way you have countries that do different things, different combinations of cards, different alchemies of effects, and gives you more flavor and personality. I like this idea a lot. Also, each national expansion comes, well, with a player's deck and with an AI deck that is used precisely if you want to automatize some of the opponents. So now the game can be played solo. I can play as a generic colonial empire against Portugal, as England against Netherlands, England against Spain. Seems very historical, seems to make sense that way. So really nice. And you don't even have to just have one AI. I can play by myself against 4 enemy AIs. So really neat idea. It's a game that has potential. I like these ideas. I like the way things are placed on the map. That is, they're going for regional monopoly means that it's going to be harder to go for a sport monopoly, since that is spread all around. So the fact that there are goals that are located in one area and goals that are scattered around, and you're trying to get a little bit of both, that is interesting stuff. I like the changing values here. So there are a lot of things that I like about this game, or several things that I like. However, there are also things that I don't like, but let's talk about those in the conclusions of this video. Settlers of Catan has been the target of some criticism lately as a colonialist fantasy. I don't have any problem with Settlers of Catan because it's a fictional island, and as far as I know, there wasn't anybody there before the settlers that the players control got there. Any island in history, if you go back enough, there was a time where no one was there, and then somebody was there. Every place on Earth, actually, that has somebody at some point didn't have anybody. So a lot of lands on our planet were colonized by people that didn't steal the land from anybody. They didn't cause any violence against other humans. Settlers of Catan, to me, is set in one of these idyllic cases in which no one suffers from the colonists getting there. Well, 1500, that is not the same thing. Explicitly, you are taking the role of players that committed of powers that committed these horrendous crimes against the natives of what they used to call the New World, but it wasn't all that new. So, to me, that's problematic. And you may say, but Marco, you play war games all the time. How about stuff like Operation Barbarossa? A lot of people died there too. Yes, but war, in some cases, is, once it's triggered, then you have to fight it to stop it. I don't know that after Hitler started Operation Barbarossa or invaded Poland, the powers that have been attacked could have chosen peace and negotiation and hugging each other and diplomacy. A war had to be. When you play a game about storming Normandy with the Allies, it doesn't mean that you are approving of that war. It means that you have to take care of it. Like if you're doing surgery, it doesn't mean that you're approving of the disease that forces you to to perform surgery. So 1500 is really about why wouldn't we go there and take their stuff and kill them all and enslave them, and that makes me feel uncomfortable. Now if the game was good mechanically, then I'm like, well, why don't we just transport it to a different theme? Why don't we have the same game and we are colonizing a planet which has nobody there, and I'm perfectly fine. Then it is about controlling areas and monopoly here, monopoly there, monopoly of resources, regions. It's fine. Why not? There are a lot of planets out there that I'm sure have a lot of good stuff that no one has claimed, and let's go get it. So I wish the theme was different, but I would feel even stronger if then the game was good. If the game mechanic is not very good, then I'm not even going to advocate, well, let's have this amazing engine in a theme that is more appealing. And here's my problem. As a game, I'm not particularly impressed. I think there is potential here. I see a core of good ideas that I like a lot, but there is a certain half-baked feel that it comes on this game that I couldn't get past that. It really seemed to me like the game was rushed into production. It could have benefited from a couple of more rounds of play testing and polishing. The fact that the rulebook is short, and I would say it's too short, leaves too many areas uncovered, too many questions, to me is already a sign that something went wrong there in the chain of command, the chain of production. Yes, there will be an errata that will come out, all right, but that is still a symptom that something went on, and maybe, again, the rulebook is not the only problem. So the rulebook, I can make judgment calls, I can make up my own rules. Maybe I didn't play the game right, I play my own variant. And if by playing it wrong, then what I'm going to tell you next has happened, it can be fixed by playing it right. All right. The point is that even after I made those judgment calls, I had problems with gameplay, and I had one problem, but it was a huge problem that pretty much ruined the experience of playing the game for me, which is a lot of luck and the wrong kind of luck. There are games where you have a lot of luck all the time, which has to do with minor things. I get one thing instead of two, I reduce you by 1 point, or if I'm lucky, by 2. And it's not huge world-altering things that are controlled by luck. Also, it's a lot of luck that evens itself out. Not here. The game has a lot of luck and is the worst type, which is the swingy one. There are just huge, massive swings of fortune. You play 2 cards, you get a lucky hand, you play a card, and the opponent blocks that card, and then you play 3 massive cards, and all of a sudden you have your colonies everywhere. All of your colonies, every colony tokens are on the board, and the opponent or opponents has almost none. What? It just seemed to me that having a lucky hand the first round or 2 usually gave one of the parties a huge monstrous advantage. And at that point, the game wasn't all that interesting to play, with scores like 40-1. Maybe if you keep playing, there is a way of catching up, but it just seems silly to me. The game just kept like a door in the wind, slamming one way or the other, never being just in between. And that's it. I just felt that the cards were playing the game, and I was just moving cards around. Too bad, because again, I really like the idea of a card-driven game in which you're playing cards to do the card-driven. Very often we have in war games, but I like that random element. When I would like to see the random element applied to a more Euro situation, Euro game situation, resources, connecting things, etc. I like that idea a lot, and I like even more the idea of the AIs, because I also like to play games solo. Now I could great replay value, because I can play as Portugal or Spain, it's gonna be different, and I can play against Portugal or Spain or France, it's gonna be different. But I tried different combinations, and again, one side would just win massively, and I never got the sense, wow, this time I was really able to achieve superior gameplay, and that really makes this victory satisfying and rewarding. No, this time I really got a murderous combination of cards. Well, you got a tame combination of cards and not enough reaction cards. And I just kicked you out of the board virtually. Winning or losing felt immaterial, felt trivial, because it felt just the game was completely chaotic, completely dominated by luck. Am I wrong? I hope so. Because then if I'm wrong and the game is played differently and there are other ways of playing the game that I missed, then maybe I'll play it again in the future, or I'll even go through the trouble of making my own copy with a different theme that is one that I feel more comfortable playing. As is, the theme I find not very desirable, actually not desirable at all. The mechanics feel rushed and half-baked, and they just feel like there's not... They don't really allow a strategy to emerge and gameplay to feel rewarding. That at least is my experience. As of now, I cannot recommend 1500 as is. I hope it gets a couple of tweaks. I hope maybe it gets playtested more, errata come out, gameplay's fixed somehow. As is, I found the game not really playable because I felt that the game was playing and not me. Just those swings of fortune deprive my experience and of any joy and fun. So 1500. I hope it gets better in the future. As is, not a very good game. Actually, not a good game at all, in my opinion.